Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to get the most out of our latest SSL 4000E channel strip emulation, the SSL EV2 channel strip plugin. With EV2, we've given you a totally remodeled tool to mix SSL style. Let's now give you some technique to help you get the most out of that legendary analog sound. We're going to use the punchy SSL 4000E dynamics, new line and mic input characteristics, and legendary EQ flavors, along with SSL EV2's new black and brown low frequency knobs to add richness to drums, fatness to basses, focus to acoustic and electric guitars, and control for those all-important vocals. And for a change, we're going to shape these tracks with EV2 together, so there will be a bit of trial and error along the way on my part. But that's the magic of mixing, right? Now, before we go any further, please do hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to be kept up to date with all future tutorials from Waves Audio that will help elevate your mixing and production skills. Now let's jump in to an overview of the controls. Now the line and mic input section is new to EV2. The line input adds very gentle harmonic coloration, and the mic is much more aggressive sounding. If you dial in extreme amounts, you may need to hit the -20 dB pads to give you some headroom, and these inputs are well worth exploring as they'll add some great character to your tracks. Next, we've got the compressor section, which you can use to dial in some gentle compression through to some heavy limiting. And if you want some really aggressive compression, you can go from a very fast attack to something a bit more forgiving. Beneath that, we've got the expander gate section, brilliant for reducing microphone bleed in, say, live drum recordings. And the meters here are for both the expander gate and compressor, so you'll get a visual representation of what's going on with your settings there. Now beneath that, we've got the two filters, high and low pass. If your track's got a bit too much rumble, dial in the high pass. If you've got drum overheads that may sound a bit too shrill, you can use the low pass. And to the right of that, we've got the famous color-coded SSL EQ. 4 bands ranging high frequencies, high mid frequencies, low mid frequencies, and low frequencies, with the new addition to switch between the original brown and the classic black. Now there are additional controls here, I will get to those shortly, but let's take a listen to what this can do on a few tracks in this mix. Starting with some live drums. Let's focus in on that kick drum. Okay, it's got a nice tone and nice punch, but I think we can take it a bit further with SSL EV2. Now the art to using EQ and compression is to first ask yourself, what do I want to achieve? Try to work out what's good about a track you're working on and what needs some help. Now with this kick drum, I think we need to get rid of some of the subbiness of it. I think we need to bring out a little bit more punch and a bit more presence. Let's start by adding a bit of character with the mic input. And it will bring up the level. And as I said, you can give yourself some headroom, -20 dB pads. And let's now get some control over that kick by using the compressor. Now, a simple way to get the compressor to start reacting in SSL EV2 is to shift, click both ratio and threshold controls, so both the controls can move equally at the same time. Let's stay there with that ratio, and now let's drop that threshold even lower to get even more punch out of this. Sounding good, but I wonder what it sounds like if I was to switch over to a faster attack. Very aggressive. More transparent. Now if you slow down the release, the compressor's going to be a lot lazier. So things will stay compressed for longer, and the highest value you can set here is 4 seconds, which is quite long. Now if we bring it down to speed up the release, the compression effects will just sound a bit snappier. Now let's use the expander gate to reduce some of that bleed. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with ratio and threshold here on the compressors, with range and threshold, shift and click. Now, if you go too far with the range, you may find that your bleed can sound a bit choppy and choked. Let me show you. some is still coming through. Let's adjust the threshold. That's very, very tight. Let's lengthen the release. You don't want to try and eliminate all spill from drums. Leave some of that natural sound in there. Just going to reduce that range value so we still have some in there, but it's controlled. That just focuses that kick. Let's lighten the energy from the ride cymbal bleed with the low pass. So it's a darker sound and the ride spill is softer, but the kick still sounds present. And let's just take away some of the very, very low subby qualities of this kick as well, just to focus that sound more. Too much? Something around about there works. Let's take another listen to this kick before and after. Okay, let's use the EQ now to further instill some character into this kick. When working on live drums, it's really important to know what the fundamental frequency is of each shell, so that being the natural pitch of the drum. If you were using a parametric EQ with an analyzer, you'd be able to find it visually quite quickly. With EV2, we're going to be using the dials and our ears and a secret weapon to find the frequencies that we want to enhance and the frequencies we may want to knock back a little bit. So let's find the pitch of this kick drum. To do that, select the EQ solo at the top here. And what this does is every time you click on your EQs down here, you will hear just that band. Let's select the brown knob and go down to the frequency selector and sweep until we hear that pitch come forward. So it's round about there, the 200 Hertz mark. Next, I want to find some frequencies that could be regarded as slightly boxy sounding. I'm going to use the blue low frequency controls for this. Round about here. Let's tighten the Q and simply cut it and turn the EQ solo off so that we can hear what we're doing in full bandwidth. It's more like it. Now, a neat trick with SSL is that you can reorder your EQ and compressor. Now, what I've shown you so far has been fairly standard, so working from left to right of the plugin. But if you hit the channel out here on the dynamics, so Dyne 2, it's now the other way round. So that EQ is now feeding into that compressor. And what this means is that you can drive your boosts into the compressor and get some really nice extra aggression. And having the EQ before the compressor is what many engineers regard as that SSL sound. Now let's use the high mid frequencies here to get some extra click and bite out of this. And I'm going to be pushing it quite hard into the compressor and you'll hear everything just come together. First, let's put EQ solo in so that we can locate where the click is. It's about there, 2.5K. Let's have a fairly wide Q and let's push it. You can hear that compressor working harder. Let's take a listen to that kick before and after in the context of the drum mix. Let's head on over now to the snare top channel and load up the preset browser, which has over 600 presets by the likes of Jacariah King, Dave Pensado, Lou Diaz, and so many more. And yeah, I trust their ears more than mine, so I'm going to have a little play around with some of their presets. To do that, I can very simply type in snare into the search and see what pops up. Let's try out one of Nick Brophy's presets. Let's lower that threshold, up the ratio. Let's try that in the context of the mix. Very nice. Now with presets, don't feel like you need to set them and forget them. Use them as starting points, use them as a source of inspiration, use them as a learning tool. Let's now use SSL EV2 to treat a muddy sounding double-tracked acoustic guitar section. Okay, sounds nice. A little bit too much energy in the lower mids. If anything, they sound a bit too wide. First up, let's address the width. At the bottom right, when working with stereo tracks, you can make good use of this control here. By default, it's set to stereo, so as you hear it. If you dial this towards mono, stereo width collapses, summed to mono, and you can set anything between that just to narrow up your stereo tracks. And if you push past mono, you're going to be reversing the stereo image. Much better. Mono. Too narrow. Reverse. And before. Slightly narrow. Now you may be thinking that you want your tracks to sound even wider. Well, you can. Extra wide. Hit that and your tracks will reach slightly wider in your stereo image. Now the filter switch beneath that is very handy if you find that your tracks may be sounding a little bit too phasey in the lower range. This will force everything around 200 Hz and below to be mono, so the extra wide does the magic in the upper mids and the highs where you want it. Now let's just bring that back to being somewhere between a narrow and wide image, and let's use the EQ and dynamics in SSL EV2 to give some shape to this acoustic. Now I'm going to put the compressor once again post the EQ, and I'm going to start with the EQ and filters this time. Start by rolling off some of the low end we don't need. Wind it until you hear it. That's when you know you've gone too far, and then you can reveal a bit of the low end back. Okay, that works nicely. Let's now use the low mid frequency knob to carve away a little bit more of that lower energy. Again, going to use the EQ solo for this to help me find what I need quicker. It's around about there, just sounds a bit muffled. Let's set a slightly wider Q so the overall effect is more gentle to the sounds. Take EQ solo off, and let's just bring down the gain. Again, listening in full bandwidth. Very nice. Before. After. So we've got a tighter stereo image. We've got rid of the very, very low stuff that we don't really need in an acoustic guitar, and lessened the muddy tones that often crop up in acoustic guitar recordings. Let's use the compressor now to add a bit of density to this performance. Shift-click ratio threshold. Let's have a listen. Aggressive it is, so let's bring down the ratio. Don't want to go too far, don't want to rob the guitar of its dynamics. But what I'm finding now is that the acoustic is sounding a little bit too harsh. Let's use the red high frequency knobs here, put it into bell. Find where that harshness is, and bring it down a little bit. So EQ solo, and let's have a little listen. Yeah, around about 6K, I'd say. Let's pull it down. Want to be gentle here, still want some presence in the performance. And one final before and after of the acoustic guitars. Let's move on now to some bass guitar. And I'm not sure how I want it to sound and feel. So for inspiration and a starting point, I'm going to look in the preset browser. I'm going to search bass. And let's have a go with one of Chris Basford's presets. Right out of the box, this preset gives more beef and sustain. Let's try the same preset with the brown knob in. Slightly more aggressive, that's nice. Let's go back around that again and just switch between these brown and black flavours. Black's definitely got lower reaching effects on this bass. And brown has got a very distinctive sound there, very aggressive, very edgy. Let's look at how we can use SSL EV2 on a lead vocal.
That's the color of a Sunday morning, lying in bed with you.
Sounds nice. Needs compression there to control the dynamics. And I reckon we can bring out a little bit more sweetness in the voice as well. I'm going to work with the compressor first this time and then EQ after.
That's the color of a Sunday morning, lying in bed with you, touching feet beneath the sheets, no one.
Now the EV2 compressor is really good on vocals. I find that you can push it quite hard and things can still sound very transparent. Of course, you'll need to make sure that you have the attack set to its slowest setting so that it doesn't grab too much and a release speed that doesn't keep the clamp down for too long. But a fairly open ratio and a well-placed threshold will do the trick on your vocals. Now let's use the EQ, get a bit more sweetness out of this voice. Not going to be using the EQ solo for this, as I'm not listening for problems, I'm just listening to how I can enhance the feel of this vocal.
That's the color of a Sunday morning.
Start with a really high frequency, the airy stuff.
You, touching feet beneath the sheets, no one.
That's nice, very present. Let's keep the gain there and let's sweep around, see if we can find a better colour for the top end of this voice.
That's the color of a Sunday morning, lying in bed with you.
Oh, it's getting very harsh.
Feet beneath
I think we were good here. Let's just bring this back a bit.
To tell us to get up and run into the day. It says no rush, nowhere to be but here with you.
I think we can use the high pass filter here as well, just to control the low end energy.
That's the color of a Sunday morning, lying in bed with you, touching feet beneath the sheets, no one to tell us to get up and run.
Okay, let's use SSL EV2 to treat some thrashy and trashy electric guitars. And like the acoustic guitars we heard earlier, these are also double tracked. Let's just close up the width a little bit. Yeah, high pass. Let's get rid of some of that rumble. You can hear where there's some sloppy playing on the lower strings. Better. But they feel quite thin. Let's use either the brown or the black knob to put a bit more weight back in. I'm going to put this in EQ solo, find a frequency range that I like, and boost it. So about there, around about 300 Hertz, is the main girth of the guitar. Let's push it. It's nice. Let's try that on the brown. Black. On this guitar, black is richer. The brown is nice as well. You can push it harder. And there you have it. All you need to know to get up and running with SSL EV2 in a mix. Visit waves.com/EV2 to go grab the demo and try it for yourself. And let us know how you get on with it in the comments below. Until next time, I'm Dan from Waves. Keep it creative, and I'll see you again soon.